I pulled into the driveway of the lake house, the gravel crunching under my tires, the scent of pine and lake water flooding my senses. It was supposed to be a quiet summer, a retreat from the chaos of my life, a chance to figure out what came next. My mom had insisted the fresh air would clear my mind, and I hadn't been back here since I was a teenager. The memories were vivid: the dock's view over the shimmering lake, the creak of old floorboards betraying every step, the way the pines whispered at night. I didn't expect Aunt Camille to be waiting. She stood on the porch, a citrus drink in hand, her silk robe loosely tied, revealing tanned legs that caught the sunlight. Her blonde hair was swept into a messy bun, effortless yet striking, like she'd stepped out of a dream. The last time I saw her, she was stiff, married, her smiles rare at family gatherings. But this Camille, barefoot, sun-kissed, newly divorced, was different, alive in a way that made my breath catch. "You got taller," she said, her smile warm. Teasing. "You got blonder," I replied, trying to steady my voice. Her laugh was low. "Rich. Divorce does that," she said, shrugging. I followed her inside. The house unchanged, cozy living room with mismatched cushions, an antique hallway mirror that softened every reflection. Camille moved through it like she belonged, her presence filling the space. I couldn't stop watching her, the way her robe swayed, her ease magnetic. She caught me once, her eyes flicking over her shoulder, lips curving just enough to twist my stomach. "Your room's upstairs, third door," she said, gesturing with her glass. I nodded, dragging my suitcase, telling myself to focus. She was family, untouchable. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. The sheets were stiff, the pillows flat, my thoughts too loud. I crept downstairs for water, the house dark, except for a sliver of light from the master bedroom. The door was ajar, and there she was, standing before the mirror, bare, her robe draped on a chair. Her skin glowed in the lamplight, her silhouette graceful. I meant to turn away, but she turned first, her eyes meeting mine. No shock, no rush to cover, just a slow, curious smile. My heart pounded, my mouth dry. She didn't flinch, just resumed brushing her hair, as if daring me to acknowledge what I saw. I stumbled back to my room, face hot, closing the door softly. I sat on the bed, hands shaking, trying to convince myself it was nothing, a mistake. But her gaze, that smile, it was deliberate. I knew what I felt, and it wasn't shame. It was something alive, something dangerous, stirring in the quiet of that summer night. The next morning, the lake breeze slipped through the windows, carrying the scent of dew and pine. Birds chirped. Oblivious to the shift in my world, I crept downstairs, trying to act normal, but her image, bare, unapologetic, burned in my mind. Camille was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, her hair damp, twisted loosely, wearing a white tank top and cotton shorts that hugged her frame. She moved with ease, humming softly, as if last night hadn't happened. "Morning," she said, not turning. "Morning," I managed, my voice tight. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes lingering, lips twitching into that faint, unreadable smile, not smug, but knowing. I sat at the table, watching her, every motion amplified, her wrist flicking, her arm stretching. I tried to focus on the cookbook stacked nearby, the clock's steady tick, but my eyes kept drifting to her. She knew it. We ate in near silence, forks clinking, the air thick with unspoken tension. Her knee brushed mine under the table as she reached for syrup, lingering just a moment too long. I told myself I was imagining things, that I'd misread her look, her smile. But later, passing her room, the door was open again. She stood at the mirror, sliding a bra strap over her shoulder, her gaze catching mine. She didn't rush, just reached for a silk blouse, her movements slow, deliberate. My throat tightened. I looked away. Too late. She'd seen me, and she'd wanted me to see. That night, I stayed up, pretending to read. Camille passed through the living room, a sheer nightgown catching the lamplight. Her fingers brushed my book, her voice soft. "You always stayed up late, and you never wore see-through dresses," I said, the words slipping out. Her eyes sparkled. "You noticed?" I swallowed. "Caught." She walked away, the gown swaying like a whisper, leaving me to wrestle with the pull of her presence. Knowing the summer was no longer quiet, the lake house woke with the soft hum of morning, sunlight filtering through the pines, casting dappled shadows across the wooden floors. I lay in bed, the memory of Camille's gaze bold, unyielding, burning in my mind. Her silhouette in the lamplight, her knowing smile, had shifted something inside me, and I couldn't shake it. I told myself it was nothing, a moment misread, but my heart raced with the truth. She'd seen me watching, and she hadn't looked away. I crept downstairs, the scent of coffee and pancakes filling the air, trying to act like the world hadn't tilted. Camille stood at the stove, barefoot, her hair damp and loosely knotted, wearing a white tank top that hung low and cotton shorts that clung to her curves. She moved with a casual grace, humming a tune I didn't recognize, as if last night's encounter was just a dream. "Morning," she said, not turning, her voice warm but teasing. "Morning," I replied, my throat tight. Settling at the kitchen table, she glanced over her shoulder, her eyes catching mine, lips curling into that faint, unreadable smile, not quite innocent, not quite daring, but enough to make my pulse jump. I focused on the stack of cookbooks on the counter, the clock's steady tick, anything to ground me. But her every motion drew me in the flick of her wrist, the stretch of her arm, the bare skin glowing in the morning light. We ate in near silence, the clink of forks loud against the charged air. Her knee brushed mine under the table as she reached for the syrup, lingering just a moment too long, her touch deliberate. I told myself I was imagining it, that the open door, the look, the smile were all coincidence, but the air felt sticky, heavy with what we wouldn't say. "Beautiful morning," she murmured, her voice soft, her eyes flicking to mine. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. After breakfast, I escaped to the porch, hoping the lake's calm would steady me. The water sparkled, the pines whispered, but my thoughts kept drifting to her. Later, I went upstairs for a sweater and past her room. The door was ajar, and there she was, standing at the mirror, sliding a bra strap over her shoulder, her skin catching the light. She turned at my footsteps, her gaze locking on mine. Slow and deliberate, she reached for a silk blouse, slipping it on like a performance meant for me. My breath caught. I looked away, but not fast enough. She'd seen me, and she'd wanted me to see. I hurried to my room, my face hot, trying to convince myself it was nothing, but her eyes told a different story. That evening, I sat in the living room, pretending to read, the words blurring on the page. Camille passed through, her sheer nightgown shimmering in the lamplight. Her steps slow, deliberate. She stopped by the couch, her fingers brushing the edge of my book, as if curious. "You always stayed up late," she said, her voice low, teasing, "and you never wore see-through dresses." I replied before I could stop myself. Her eyes glittered, her lips curving. "You noticed?" I swallowed, caught, my heart pounding. She tilted her head, studying me, then walked away, the gown swaying like an invitation. I stared at the book, unseeing, her words echoing. She knew what she was doing, and I was falling into it, unable to look away. The days that followed blurred into a haze of soft mornings and charged silences. We took long walks by the lake, her hand brushing mine, our conversations tiptoeing near dangerous edges but never crossing. She grew bolder, her touches lingering, a hand on my back as she passed, her fingers resting on my knee when we sat on the porch swing, drawing tiny circles that sent shivers through me. I tried to resist, to remind myself she was family, but her presence was a current, pulling me under. One afternoon, we drove to town, just the two of us. I wore a sundress, light and flowing, feeling her eyes on me as we walked through the market. "You've grown into something striking," she said, reaching to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers grazing my jaw. The world seemed to pause, her touch electric, her gaze holding mine. I stepped back, muttering, "We should get going." "Of course," she said, but her smile said she saw through me. Back at the house, I found her in the kitchen at midnight, pouring wine under the dim glow of cabinet lights. Her navy silk slip clung to her, barefoot elegance in the shadows. "Can't sleep?" she asked, handing me a glass, our fingers brushing. "You neither," I said, my voice unsteady. We stood close, her shoulder grazing mine, the fabric of her slip whispering against my skin. "You're watching me a lot lately," she said, her breath warm on my cheek. I froze, unable to answer. "Don't stop," she whispered, her voice like velvet. I made an excuse and fled to my room, but her words burned, a spark in the quiet night. I lay awake, the lake's gentle lapping outside no match for the storm inside me, knowing we were teetering on a line we couldn't uncross. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. The lake house felt different now, its walls holding our unspoken tension. I caught her watching me too, her eyes lingering when I reached for something, her laugh softer when we were alone. She didn't retreat, and neither did I. I started wearing lighter clothes, skipping layers when I knew we'd be alone, testing the waters. Her gaze followed, steady, unapologetic. One evening, as we sat by the fire, her hand rested on my arm, her thumb tracing slow patterns. "You feel it too, don't you?" she murmured, her eyes searching mine. I nodded, my throat tight, the firelight dancing on her face. The summer was no longer quiet. It was alive, dangerous, and I was caught in its pull, wondering how far we'd go before the world caught up. The lake house seemed to pulse with our secret, its quiet rooms and creaking floors, holding the weight of what Camille and I were becoming. Her presence was everywhere, her soft laugh, the brush of her fingers, the way her eyes caught mine in fleeting, charged moments. I tried to hold on to reason, to remind myself she was my aunt. Family, forbidden, but reason crumbled under the heat of her gaze. That morning, I found her in the kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, her loose tank top slipping off one shoulder, cotton shorts hugging her thighs. She flipped pancakes with a casual grace, humming softly, as if the air between us wasn't electric. "Morning," she said, her voice warm, teasing, not turning from the stove. "Morning," I replied, settling at the table, my heart racing. She glanced back, her lips curving into that faint, knowing smile that unraveled me. We ate in silence, forks clinking, the air thick with what we wouldn't say. Her knee grazed mine under the table, lingering, deliberate, sending a shiver through me. I tried to focus on the coffee mug, the ticking clock, but her every move pulled me in the stretch of her arm, the curve of her neck in the light. After breakfast, I escaped to the dock, hoping the lake's calm would ground me. The water sparkled, pines whispering in the breeze. But my thoughts were of her silhouette in the lamplight, her unapologetic gaze. I heard her footsteps behind me, soft on the wooden planks. She sat beside me, her feet dangling over the water, her shoulder brushing mine. "You're quiet today," she said, her voice low, searching. "Just thinking," I murmured, avoiding her eyes. Her hand rested on my knee, her thumb tracing slow circles, each one a spark. "About what?" she asked, her tone daring me to say it. I swallowed, my throat tight. "About us." Her breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. "Dangerous thoughts," she said, her fingers tightening slightly. I nodded, the lake's stillness mocking the storm inside me. Later, we drove to town, the car filled with a quiet tension. I wore a sundress, light and flowing, feeling her eyes on me as we walked through the market. "You've grown into something striking," she said, her fingers brushing my jaw as she tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was electric, the world fading around us. I stepped back, muttering, "We should keep moving." "Of course," she said, her smile soft but piercing. Back at the house, midnight found us in the kitchen. The only light from under cabinet bulbs, she poured wine, her navy silk slip clinging to her. "Barefoot elegance in the shadows. Can't sleep?" she asked, handing me a glass, our fingers lingering. "Not really," I said, my voice unsteady. We stood close, her shoulder grazing mine, the fabric of her slip whispering against my skin. "You're watching me a lot," she murmured, her breath warm on my cheek. I froze, heart pounding. "Don't stop," she whispered, her voice like a caress. I made an excuse and fled, but her words burned, a spark I couldn't extinguish. The days blurred, each one heavier with our unspoken dance. Camille grew bolder, her robe looser each morning, her voice carrying a teasing lilt. I stopped fighting it, wearing lighter dresses, skipping layers when we were alone, testing her gaze. She noticed, her eyes lingering, unapologetic. One afternoon, she appeared in the living room, a navy swimsuit barely covering her, her walk slow, deliberate. "Thought you didn't swim," I said, my voice catching. "I like the sun on my skin," she replied, her eyes tracing me where I sat on the couch. "You coming?" I followed, heart racing, to the patio where the lake gleamed like silver. She stretched on a lounge chair, golden in the sunlight. Sunglasses low on her nose, she handed me sunscreen, rolling onto her stomach. "Get my back," she said, her tone casual but heavy. My hands trembled as I rubbed lotion into her warm skin, her soft sighs unraveling me. "Good hands," she murmured, her voice a hidden smile. I barely breathed, the intimacy overwhelming in the daylight. That night, I couldn't sleep, the lake's gentle lapping no match for my thoughts. I stood outside her room, heart hammering, hand hovering near the door. I didn't knock, retreating instead, afraid of what lay beyond. But the next morning, she passed me coffee, her fingers closing around mine, lingering, our eyes locked. The kitchen silent. "We need to stop pretending," she whispered, her thumb brushing my hand. "Pretending what?" I asked, breathless. "That you don't want this as much as I do." Her hand grazed my cheek, her voice soft. "Say it." I couldn't. Instead, I leaned in, kissing her softly, the hallway closet at my back. Her hand slid to my neck, pulling me deeper, the kiss hungry, real. We broke apart, breathless. "I'm not sorry," I whispered. "Neither am I," she said, her eyes burning. "Tonight," she murmured, "come to my room when it's quiet." I nodded, knowing we'd crossed a line, the lake house holding our secret. The summer no longer a refuge but a fire we'd both ignited. The air felt different now, charged with what we'd admitted. I caught her watching me, her gaze softer, more open, but laced with something unspoken fear, maybe, or longing. We sat by the fire that evening, her hand resting on my arm, her thumb tracing patterns. "This changes everything," she said, her voice low, her eyes on the flames. I nodded, my heart full. "I know." The lake sparkled outside, calm, but inside, we were a storm, teetering on the edge of something we couldn't undo, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. The lake house felt alive with our secret, its walls holding the weight of every glance, every touch. Camille's presence was a current, pulling me deeper each day, her teasing smile, her lingering fingers, the way her voice dropped when we were alone. I tried to hold on to reason, to remember she was family, but her gaze burned through my defenses. That morning, I found her on the porch, coffee in hand, her robe loosely tied, sunlight catching her blonde hair. She looked at me, her eyes soft but searching, and I felt the air shift. "You're up early?" she said, her voice warm, teasing. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted, settling beside her on the swing. Our shoulders brushed, the lake sparkling below, its calm mocking the storm inside me. Her hand rested on my knee, her thumb tracing slow circles, each one a spark. "You're thinking too much," she murmured, her gaze holding mine. I nodded, my throat tight, knowing she saw everything I couldn't say. The day unfolded in a haze of tension. We moved through the house, our paths crossing in charged moments, her hand grazing my back as she passed, her laugh softer when we were alone. I stopped fighting it, wearing lighter dresses, skipping layers, feeling her eyes follow me. She noticed, her gaze unapologetic, a silent acknowledgement of the line we were blurring. One afternoon, she appeared in the living room, a navy swimsuit hugging her frame. Barely there, her walk deliberate. "Thought you didn't swim," I said, my voice unsteady, curled on the couch. "I like the sun on my skin," she replied, her eyes tracing me. Slow and bold. "You coming?" I followed, heart pounding, to the patio where the lake gleamed like silver. She stretched on a lounge chair, golden in the sunlight. Sunglasses low on her nose, she handed me sunscreen. Rolling onto her stomach, "Get my back," she said, her tone casual but heavy. My hands trembled as I rubbed lotion into her warm skin, her soft sighs unraveling me. "Good hands," she murmured, her voice a hidden smile. I barely breathed, the intimacy overwhelming. The lake's serenity, a stark contrast to my racing heart. That night, the house was still, the lake barely rippling under moonlight. I lay in bed, her words echoing. "Come to my room when it's quiet." Our kiss in the hallway soft. Then hungry burned in my memory, her body pressed against mine, her breath warm. I couldn't unfeel it, couldn't stop wanting more. Just after midnight, I slipped from my room, the floorboards creaking underfoot. Her door was ajar, a soft glow spilling out. I stepped inside, and there she was, in a red satin slip, lace tracing her neckline, her hair loose over her shoulders. Her eyes met mine. Steady, wanting, she closed the door. The click loud in the silence. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered, a nervous laugh escaping. "I didn't try," I said, my voice raw. She stepped closer, her warmth pulling me in. I kissed her, gentle at first, then deeper, her hands in my hair, pulling me to the bed. Her slip slid off, my tank top followed, our skin meeting into moonlight. Every touch was electric. Her fingers on my shoulders, my hands on her waist. We moved like we'd always known how. No hesitation, only need. Her breath hitched as I kissed her neck, her pulse racing under my lips. "I've never felt this," she whispered, voice trembling. "Not with anyone." I nodded, my heart full. "Me neither." We explored each other slowly, every sigh a confession, every touch a vow. The lake's gentle lapping outside faded, the world reduced to her warmth, her breath, her softness. When it was over, we lay tangled in sheets, her head on my chest, her fingers tracing my skin. The crickets hummed, the house creaked. But we were still. "What did we do?" she murmured, her voice soft. "Something real," I said, my hand brushing her hair. She looked up, her eyes tender, conflicted. "This is dangerous," she whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. "I know." Her fingers tightened on mine. A silent promise. We fell asleep entwined, the moonlight spilling across us, the lake house holding our secret. But morning loomed, heavy with questions we weren't ready to face. And I knew this moment, perfect and fragile, couldn't last. The next day, the air felt different, heavier. Camille moved through the kitchen, her robe tied tight, her eyes guarded. I watched her pour coffee, my heart aching for the closeness we'd shared. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. She nodded, setting her mug down. "Not here," she murmured, glancing at the open windows. We walked to the dock, the lake shimmering under the morning sun. She sat, her feet dangling, her silence heavy. "I don't know how to act around you now," I admitted, sitting beside her. Her hand found mine, her thumb tracing patterns. "Then don't act," she said, her voice soft. "Just feel it, let it matter." Her words hit like a pulse, raw and true. I leaned closer, wanting more, but her eyes flickered with fear. "This could break everything," she said. "Family. Trust us." I nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. "But it's already started," I whispered. She leaned in, her forehead grazing mine, her breath warm. "We need time," she said, "to figure this out." I agreed, but the space between us felt alive, pulsing with what we couldn't undo, and I wondered how long we could hold it together before it all fell apart. The lake house felt smaller now, its walls holding our secret like a fragile promise. Camille's touch, her hand on mine, her breath in the dark lingered in every corner. But the summer was ending, and reality pressed in. I woke to soft light spilling through the curtains, her warmth still against me, her leg draped over mine, her face tucked close. Her red slip lay crumpled on the floor, a reminder of the night we'd crossed every line. I wanted to stay there, frozen in that perfect moment. but she stirred, her eyes blinking open, searching mine. No smile, just a quiet weight longing tangled with fear. I felt it too, the ache of what we'd done, the truth we couldn't unsee. We sat up, sheets pooling around us, the silence heavy with unspoken questions. I don't regret it, she said, her voice rough from sleep. I don't want you to think I do. I don't, I replied, too fast, my heart racing. I don't either, she nodded, but her gaze was guarded, her hand reaching for her robe, tying it loosely. I pulled on a shirt, the air delicate, like glass about to crack. Downstairs, coffee brewed, filling the kitchen with its familiar scent. She handed me a mug, her fingers brushing mine, but her touch was careful now. Restrained, I wanted to hold her, to erase the distance, but her eyes held a flicker of guilt. Maybe fear. We can't go back, she said, staring at her mug. I don't want to, I admitted, my voice barely audible. She looked at me, surprised, like I'd said something impossible. You're scared, I said, stepping closer. So am I. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining, her thumb tracing slow circles. Then don't act like it's nothing, she whispered. Let it matter. Her words hit deep, raw and true. We drank in silence, the lake sparkling outside, its calm mocking the storm inside me. I thought of her sister, my mom, oblivious, and the weight of family pressed harder. What we'd done wasn't just ours. It could break everything. Later, we sat on the dock, the lake shimmering under the morning sun. Her feet dangled over the water, her shoulder brushing mine. You're leaving tomorrow, she said, her voice low, not meeting my eyes. My stomach twisted. Yeah. Silence fell, heavy with what we couldn't say. I wanted to reach for her, to hold on to what we'd found. But fear held me back. She turned, her eyes soft, searching. This wasn't a mistake, she said, her voice steady but raw. It was us, needing something real. I nodded, my throat tight. What now? Her sigh was heavy, her hand squeezing mine. Now we carry it. We don't forget. Her touch was warm, grounding, but it couldn't erase the truth we were on fragile ground, and time was running out. That afternoon, we packed my things, her hands folding my clothes with care, as if each fold could hold our secret. Her fingers brushed mine, lingering, and she paused, her eyes downcast. Come back, she said, her voice low. Not just for this. I'll miss you. My heart ached, the words heavy with everything we weren't saying. I'll miss you too, I whispered, my hand grazing hers. The air felt thick, charged with the pull of her presence, the ache of leaving. We stood in the bedroom, sunlight filtering through the pines, the lake's gentle lapping a quiet backdrop. I wanted to kiss her again, to feel the fire of that night, but her gaze held a quiet plea. Wait. Not yet, I nodded, understanding, but the longing burned. At the door, she kissed me, soft, restrained, a goodbye laced with longing. Her lips trembled, and I felt her war want versus fear, love versus the world we lived in. I don't know what we are now, I whispered, my voice breaking. She looked at me, her eyes glassy but clear, holding mine for a long moment. Something I can't forget, she said, her voice barely above a breath. She closed the door, and I stepped onto the porch, the lake sparkling in the distance. Calm, unchanged, but I was different, carrying her touch, her words, her truth. I walked to my car, the gravel crunching underfoot, the pines whispering as I drove away. The lake house faded in the rearview mirror, but its pull stayed with me, a weight I couldn't shake. I drove in silence, the highway stretching before me, my mind replaying every moment, her smile in the lamplight, her hand on my skin, the way she'd looked at me like she saw everything. We'd crossed lines, family. Trust, but it wasn't just a reckless summer. It was real, raw, a connection that defied the rules. I wondered if she was still on the porch, watching the lake, wrestling with the same ache. My phone stayed silent. No messages, just the hum of the road and my thoughts. I pictured returning one day, finding her there, her eyes meeting mine, picking up where we left off. But for now, I carried her with me, a secret too deep to let go. The lake's beauty lingered in my mind, a contrast to the storm inside. And I knew this summer had changed me, had changed us, in ways I was only beginning to understand. As I drove, I thought of the lake house, its creaky floors and mismatched cushions, a place that held our laughter, our silences, our truth. I saw Camille in every detail, her robe slipping, her voice teasing, her touch electric. I didn't know what came next, if we'd ever find a way to be more than this fleeting moment. But her words echoed, let it matter. And it did. It mattered more than I could say. A piece of me left by that lake, with her. If you've ever felt something forbidden, something you couldn't let go, what would you have done? I'm still wondering where the story ends, carrying it as I drive into the unknown. The lake house, a memory, but Camille, a fire that won't fade.